the broadcast of Back Roads of Illinois. We are bringing latest agricultural news and markets update on Back Roads of Illinois. Bring you like inside of the markets and interview with people in the agricultural industry for farmers and ranchers in central Illinois and across the Midwest. Today's edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We were Central Illinois agriculture source, and in the Midwest alongside in Central Illinois agriculture, we were glad you're here on a Wednesday afternoon. We were talking about the World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimate report on last week because we missed it for last Friday. However, we were talking about it with Ben Potter from Farm Futures on today's program. We are excited to be joining with Ben from Farm Futures on Back Roads of Illinois. I am Cesar Delgado. I am your host of Back Roads of Illinois. This is your agricultural news and markets update on Back Roads of Illinois. We are watching the forecast for the freezing weather conditions in central Illinois and across the Midwest, however, in critical condition of the corn crop in the field. However, this week will be cooler than average. The presidential candidates are down for the agricultural industry for farmers. Nor one is not interested in agricultural because of the trade deficit and biofuels. China could have downturned to their economy because of their modern policy for this week in China. China has fallen apart from the economy for this year. This is your agricultural news on Back Roads of Illinois. We are back with Ben Potter from Farm Futures on Back Roads of Illinois. This is your opening bell numbers of the commodity markets from Kyle Bumstead from Allendale Inc. Corn futures are up at 5 to 10 cents. Soybean futures are up at 4 to 6 cents. Wheat futures are up at 3 to 5 cents. This is your livestock markets update. Cattle futures are up to 9 to 10 cents. Feeder cattle are up to 8 to 7 cents. Lean hogs are up at 3 to 5 cents. Crude oil are up to 9 to 10 per barrel. Dow Jones are up to 9. We were talking about the World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimate report on last week because we missed it for last Friday. However, we were talking about it with Ben Potter from Farm Futures on today's program. Welcome to join the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
Let's start to digest the report from the Department of Agriculture for last week. Can you explain to our listeners how was it?
Well, I think for the most part, it was not great news in terms of grain prices. It's probably good news in terms of if you're hoping to grow a big crop. With that in mind, USDA had October corn production estimates at 15.203 billion bushels, which would be the second largest U.S. harvest on record if realized. Analysts were expecting a bit lower with an average trade guess of 15.155 billion bushels. Average yields are also just off the charts at 183.8 bushels per acre. And then for soybeans, USDA is actually predicting the largest production on record at 4.582 billion bushels based on average yields of 53.1 bushels per acre. So again, just insane numbers that we're producing this year, despite some production problems early in the season.
How was the corn carry-out numbers?
So ending stocks are now at 1.999 billion bushels, which is a bit below September figures, but still above the average trade estimates. Soybeans held steady at 550 million bushels, and wheat moved slightly lower to 825 million bushels. So all those are just show ample supplies. And with harvest coming in for corn and soybeans, that obviously is putting a lot of downward pressure on grain prices at the moment.
Then we will see the tariff from China. How far along to put tariffs again by Trump or Harris?
Yeah, that's a very interesting. Obviously we're in election season right now. It looks like a coin toss at this point. So I think Harris is less likely to mess around with tariffs with China. So we'll suppose Trump wins in this hypothetical. Um, China is already kind of hedging their bets that that will happen. They had a record high amount of soybean purchases in September. That was 417.8 million bushels. Their year over year soybean imports are up 8.1% so far this year. So they're sort of hedging their bets that they don't want to mess with a Trump presidency that would have tariffs happen. And I also looked at a recent study from, I believe, the NCGA and the ASA, and they were looking at what impacts tariffs would have for U.S. farmers, and it's pretty dramatic. Exports to China would drop almost 52% in their scenario. Corn would also be negatively affected, and they assume the cost of soybean or the price of soybean futures would drop by 60 cents in this scenario. As we know, Trump messed around with tariffs to China in his first term, which actually he had to sort of bail out farmers because prices dropped so dramatically. I will say to Trump's credit, he's also credited with establishing the USMCA, which was sort of a reboot of NAFTA that modernized it. I think most people consider that a pretty big success. So Trump's really hit or miss in terms of foreign policies that affect U.S. farmers.
Do you have a conversation with the corn farmers about their tariffs and demand for beans to China?
I haven't spoken directly with a lot of farmers. Just seeing what people are saying on Twitter. Um, like to mirror Trump's hit or miss success. I think it's sort of people are kind of all over the board on what they are anticipating. I keep tabs on the U.S. drought monitor because it's been pretty dramatic this year compared to some other years. Uh, but in the Midwest, like most of the Midwest is actually in some form of drought. The latest readings, 81.6% of the Midwest was in at least abnormally dry conditions. And then for the high plains, which we also like to track, 85.9% of that region is in at least some form of drought. So that it's an interesting contradiction to see USDA anticipating record high yields when we're having some uh, climate concerns across the Corn Belt.
In Missouri, you're in.
Yeah, I'm in the Ozarks in Missouri, southern Missouri.
Hmm.
Just looking at our state, we are 70.7% of the state is in drought, but our garden spot is in pretty good condition. So
Do you have any final thoughts or recap of our conversation?
sure, I just think I guess I'll plug what I'm working on. We're Our upcoming cover story is concerning input pricing and how to protect profits in 2025. Obviously, we've had kind of a roller coaster ride so far this year in terms of grain prices. It's been a rough couple of weeks after a pretty good run up in September. It'll be very interesting to see where prices head next, but I think it really depends on what these harvests, the corn and soybean harvests turn out, what weather's doing in South America, uh, the Ukraine Russia war, conflict in the Middle East. There's just a lot of stuff to be monitoring right now. But I guess my advice would be to keep your head on a swivel because a lot's really going on.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope this was
Potter
helpful for
from
your
Farm
listeners.
Futures on back roads of Illinois. Thanks to Ben Potter from Farm Futures for today's program. We're running out of time on back roads of Illinois, but you can listen to our show on YouTube and whenever you get your podcast. You've been listening to Back Roads of Illinois. Have a great day.